My name's Richie Roberts. I'm the winemaker at Fielding Estate Winery. I've been the winemaker here for the last 5 years, and I'm certainly glad I got into the wine industry because it's a career choice that kind of lets you do something new every day. As the winemaker, we get a lot of say on what's going on in the vineyard, which is nice, and being actively involved in that. And then pretty much everything inside the winery that goes on from the time the grapes come here and before that, right up until bottle. The family that owns the winery, the Fielding family, are very committed to making quality wines, which is something I believe strongly in. Things we do in the vineyard are quite important. Probably the most important decision we make in terms of winemaking is the time of harvest when we're picking. After that, there's a lot of decisions that we need to make in the winery in terms of what we're doing just physically to make the wines, but also a lot of blending decisions and timing of things are very important. I used to have this old thought that before I really started getting into winemaking, that blending was your top wine was the blended wine sort of thing, and you only made one a year. But the more we get into this, the more I realize that you make blending decisions every day in winemaking, and it's probably, like I said, the most important thing that you do. One wine that I'm really happy with since I started here is the Cabernet-Syrah blend that we do. It's a wine that we started the first year I was here, and which was the 2007 vintage. So we had a lot of wines, red wines from the 2007 vintage when we started this blend for the first time that were really great wines, but maybe not the most varietally correct wines. And we saw an opportunity there using Cabernet Sauvignon and Syrah, two varieties that I know from my past experience that worked quite well together, and we started playing around with that a little bit. And that's kind of how the wine was born. It wasn't something that we had thought about beforehand, but when we started playing with those wines, blending them together, they really started to work well. And then we started adding Cab Franc into the mix as well. Every year we've made the wine. The lowest percentage has always been Cab Franc, but it always adds something to the blend, which is kind of hard to describe. And we've tried it with and without, and the wine is almost always better with it in there in a small percentage. Each vintage we've made the wine have been very different. One of the myths people always think is that the sum of wines is always greater than the parts, but that's not always true. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into making blends that are quite important, and sometimes the best blending decisions we make are the ones that we don't make. To pull wines out of a blend and to keep them as a varietal are sometimes more important than when we choose to blend wines together. So the Cab Syrah blend we're working on right now is the 2011. We're actually kind of pulling wines out of barrel right now. So we've decided on the blend for this wine, and we're just physically doing the work right now, which is, in terms of time component, is such a small part of the time that we actually work on it. The bulk of the the bulk of the work is spent deciding on the blend, and very little of the time is actually spent physically making it, which is kind of interesting. People have this notion that we're just constantly doing stuff with all these wines, but we decide on the blend on such a small scale that takes up so much time ahead of time. This is a wine that we don't make every year, but we're making most years, and I don't want to say it's consistent, meaning that it's the same every year, but it's consistent in that the years that we've made it, it's turned out to be probably one of my favorite wines every year. Every vintage is different, so sometimes we make wines that aren't made in every year, and there's certain wines that we end up making every year, which is a good thing. So once we've picked out the barrels for the final blend that we've decided on, and they've aged for the amount of time we want to age them for, for the Cab Syrah that we're working on right now, it's about 16 months that they're in barrel. And they're emptied out of barrel and into tank here, where they marry together for, you know, usually between 4 to 6 weeks. At that time, we either choose to filter the wines or not filter them and go to bottle with them. So the final step really is that the wine is bottled. This is a wine that we bottle in screw cap, as we do a lot of our other wines. Something we are pretty strong on. We feel it is a closure that's well suited to a lot of the wines we're making, including the Cab Syrah. So this is the end of the process. Make sure you get the spit. That's right.